On the face of it, wrestling is pretty straightforward. Two competitors square off in a wrestling ring with the aim of pinning or submitting your opponent. Sometimes though, two wrestlers just full-on dislike each other and no ring can contain their fury. When action spills out of the ring, it is an exciting affair, but when there is no ring altogether, then things get very saucy indeed. To say these are the best wrestling matches is a stretch, because really most of these are just out-and-out brawls. In fact, you're more likely to see someone get hit with a car than hit with a suplex. And again, to say that these are the best is an even bigger stretch, more that they are just some of the most notorious. And again, some of these matches have some action in a ring, but the ring was not deemed important to the flow or outcome of the match. Then again, if this video was called 10 wrestling matches that weren't really matches, more brawls of varying quality with some in-ring action but were mostly outside of a ring, then you probably wouldn't have clicked the video, would you? Before we start, an honorary mention for the WWF's Lion's Den matches, which were ahead of their time but also not that great. I'm Adam Pachisi from Cultaholic.com, and these are the 10 best matches outside of a wrestling ring. Join us! Number 10, Roddy Piper vs. Goldust, the Hollywood Backlot Brawl. So, where to start? Roddy Piper and Goldust started feuding because reasons, and the only way to settle their issues was with a savage fight straight out of They Live, culminating in a massive car chase parodying the real-life O.J. Simpson saga. Yep, this match was set up to poke fun at a real-life murder case. Originally, Goldust was meant to take on Razor Ramon, but the bad guy was suspended, so Roddy Piper stepped in. The match itself is pure car crash wrestling, pardon the pun. We start with a baseball bat wielding Roddy Piper staring down Goldust's golden Cadillac before spraying it with a hose because, I guess, water hurts cars? The two then proceed to batter each other using baseball bats, dumpsters, food, you name it. Then they flee the scene, Goldust in his wet Cadillac and Piper in pursuit in a white Ford Bronco, the same car O.J. Simpson legged it from the police in. The best bit is either when Hot Rod gives Goldie some legit punches to the face for good measure, breaking his hand in the process, or when Goldust runs Piper over, a stunt which was not pre-planned. Thankfully, this part of the match was taped weeks before WrestleMania so they could go to the hospital and be treated for their injuries. During the Mania broadcast, Vince McMahon repeatedly cut to the live footage of the car chase throughout, but in reality, it was the actual OJ footage. Piper and Goldust eventually turned up to the live arena to slap each other about in the ring, have a kiss, before Piper stripped Goldust to his sexy lingerie because of course he does. The match is absolutely bonkers, just recapping it hurts my head. Number 9, pretty much every DDT Pro Iron Man heavy metalweight title match ever. If you've never heard of the DDT Pro Iron Man heavy metalweight title, then boy, you better make sure you're sat down before we get to this entry. Easily the most insane championship to ever exist, the Iron Man heavy metalweight title is contested under 24/7 rules and has seen over 1,400 title changes since the year 2000. Anyone or anything can win it, as the belt has been held by wrestlers such as Kota Ibushi, Scott Hall, Rey Mysterio, and Shayna Baszler, as well as a monkey, a cat, some chicken yakitori, a poster, Yoshihiko the main event love doll, and even Jack the Jobber has won it twice. The belt has changed hands backstage, in hotels, locker rooms, parking lots, bedrooms, on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, to Vince McMahon's star no less, even in a dream. Words cannot do it justice. DDT Pro as a whole is a bit bonkers, but the Iron Man heavy metalweight title is the mental icing on the crazy cake. Yes, wrestling purists like Jim Cornette would rather watch a year's worth of Ralphus matches than acknowledge this title's existence, but we think that wrestling is best when it's varied and unpredictable, and it doesn't get more unpredictable than this. If you're one who doesn't think that wrestling always has to be taken mega seriously, then you should definitely check this out. It is truly a unique wrestling spectacle and some of the best comedy wrestling you're ever going to see. Number 8, Rey Mysterio Jr. vs. Psychosis Mexican Deathmatch. Despite what Eric Bischoff may want you to believe, he didn't bring Lucha Libre to American wrestling fans. Paul Heyman did, when he signed Conan, Psychosis, Juventud Guerrera, La Parka, and Rey Mysterio Jr. to ECW in 1995. Although the Lucha Stars didn't last long in Philly until they were snapped up by WCW, they made one hell of a mark in the land of extreme, quickly getting over with the fans with their high-flying, high-intensity Lucha style. The high point of the ECW Lucha Invasion was the Psychosis Rey Mysterio feud, which saw the two face off 3 times, including a 2 out of 3 falls match and a Mexican death match. It was the death match that capped off the feud, with Rey Mysterio coming out on top. Now, I'll admit, a fair chunk of this match did happen in the ring, but in true ECW style, it didn't really matter as the two soon made their way around ringside, through the crowd, and into the bleachers near Joey Styles' crow's nest at the back of the ECW arena, with Mysterio hitting a ridiculous Hurricane Rana off the platform onto Psychosis onto the floor. Rey got the 1-2-3 and Psychosis was unable to beat the ref's 10 count and make it back to the ring. This match summed up everything that was great about ECW. Yes, it had its fair share of chair shots and weapon shots, but it was also a showcase for excellent technical wrestling, high work rate matches, and was a springboard for styles and ideas not found in American wrestling at the time. Over 20 years later, and this match still holds up. Number 7, FMW's No Rope Electrified Barbed Wire Swimming Pool Dynamite Double Hell Death Match. The match with the longest name in wrestling history is unsurprisingly also one of the most berserk. FMW, the Japanese hardcore promotion that made ECW look like Saturday Morning Slam, specialized in wild brawls, no-rope barbed wire death matches, and exploding ring matches. Naturally, they decided to combine them all and put on a match in a floating platform in the middle of a big swimming pool. Yes, you heard that correctly, and doesn't it sound absolutely amazing? The centerpiece of a vicious feud between FMW head Atsushi Onita and the Wing Alliance, the no-rope electrified barbed wire swimming pool dynamite double hell death match, or NJPW for short, was the logical setting for a feud which was already OTT. Okay, so it technically takes place in a ring, but a ring without ropes, or stairs, or even a floor around it due to it floating in a goddamn massive swimming pool, so this definitely counts. Before a bell had even been rung, there was the logistics of actually getting the wrestlers to the match. So you have the team of Onita, Katsutoshi Niyama, and Mr. Ganasuki all piled into a tiny dinghy, looking absolutely solemn and resolute as they are transported across the water, while Wild Thing blares over the PA, while their opponents, Mr. Pogo, the Gladiator Mike Awesome, and Hideki Hosaka just hang around like bored lads at a wedding. The match itself is a bit of a mess, to be honest, but in terms of sheer spectacle, it is incredible. You have electrified barbed wire zapping whichever poor sod happens to collide with it, you have Mike Awesome body slamming people into water that explodes because physics, and you have Onita getting stabbed with, wait, is that a pissing scythe? Let's move on. Number 6, Steve Austin versus The Undertaker, Buried Alive. We couldn't do this list without a Buried Alive match now, could we? A stipulation that could only happen in a wrestling match, and maybe a horror film. The Buried Alive match is one of WWE's most violent and most chilling stipulations. The pick of the bunch, though, was the Buried Alive match between The Undertaker and Stone Cold Steve Austin at Rock Bottom in Your House in December 1998, where the winner would get a spot in the Royal Rumble, and the loser would just go and sulk somewhere. Taking place during the white-hot Austin vs. McMahon saga, this match was set up to stack the deck heavily against Austin, with Vince wanting the Texas Rattlesnake nowhere near the Rumble. In true Attitude Era style, this was less of a match and more a straight-up brawl between Austin and Taker, with the two slugging each other repeatedly for 20 minutes. The end came when Austin stunned Undertaker into the open grave, only for Kane to turn up out of nowhere, batter his brother, then proceed to bury him with a JVC full of mud. Austin, on the other hand, had a beer and got leathered. Again, not the best match in the world, are you noticing a pattern here, but an important entry in both the Austin-McMahon feud and the Undertaker-Kane feud. Number 5, Raven vs. Big Show vs. Kane at WrestleMania X7. The best WrestleMania housed the best WWF Hardcore title match, seeing champion Raven defending against Big Show and Kane. The 24/7 rule was still in effect, but had slowed down considerably since the absolute cluster at WrestleMania 2000. Still, it was attracting some half-decent names, with ECW legend Raven taking it from Billy Gunn, securing his 10th reign with the battered belt. The X7 match was an absolute brawl that saw the three men quickly bugger off backstage to trash the place. Raven got thrown through a window, Big Show and Kane tackled each other through walls, and there was a big silly chase involving golf carts that were handily backstage in Houston's Astrodome. Those golf carts actually nearly ruined the whole pay-per-view, as Raven lost control of his and crashed it into a small ditch, inches away from a mess of cables which, had Raven hit them, would have killed the power to the entire building. Yes, we were nearly robbed of the greatest WrestleMania of all time, thanks to golf carts. The three competitors eventually made their way to the entrance ramp. Big Show picked up Raven for a press slam, but was booted off the stage by Kane into a pile of debris and electrics and other bits of tat. Kane promptly elbow dropped the two, covered for the 1, 2, 3 and left with the title. On a card as stacked as Mania X7, a 9-minute hardcore bout could have easily been lost in the shuffle, but is instead remembered as one of the highlights of the show. Number 4, Big Show vs Mankind, Boiler Room Brawl. It's weird to remember that before he was the goofy sock puppet obsessed scruff bag that we know and love, Mankind was a demented psychopath who lived in a boiler room. Not content with maiming his opponents in the ring, Mankind demanded opponents come to take him on his home turf in the Boiler Room Brawl. The aim is simple: have a big fight surrounded by pipes, the first one to escape wins. Mankind would take on anyone in the boiler room, such as The Undertaker, Triple H, even Santa Claus. It was his brawl with the Big Show at Backlash in Your House which was arguably the most chaotic. Whereas the first boiler room brawl against The Undertaker had been a dark, moody affair, this one was a weapons-filled crash course in mayhem lasting just shy of 8 minutes. In that time though, Mankind and Big Show smashed glass over their heads, brawled into electricity cupboards, and crashed through tables. Mankind won when he blinded Big Paul with steam from a pipe, and scarpered only to be battered outside by the Big Boss Man and Test. Talk about bad luck. WCW soon copied the idea, named it The Block, used it as a gimmick twice, with both matches featuring Jerry Flynn. No, not the fella from ECW, Flynn with an F. Flynn. Number 3, New Age Outlaws vs Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie in a dumpster match. The first ever dumpster match took place at WrestleMania 14 and saw the still newish team of the New Age Outlaws take on Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie, aka Terry Funk. The Outlaws had been going on a tear through the WWF tag division since forming 5 months earlier, beating the Legion of Doom for the tag titles before turning their attention to Mick Foley. Mick reverted to his psychotic Cactus Jack persona and brought in Terry Funk to help him, with Funk deciding to wear a stocking on his head and lash a chainsaw around, as you do. As things started to get more heated between the two teams, the Outlaws took it to the next level by locking Cactus and Chainsaw in a dumpster and throwing it off the entrance stage. This was a very cool bump indeed. The stage had been set for WrestleMania and the dumpster match was born. The match itself was the epitome of the Attitude Era, a mid-card match between two teams just flung together, given ample time and a good gimmick to get the crowd pumped. This was also when hardcore wrestling was very in vogue, so it involved lots of plunder, as Dusty Rhodes would say. We saw ladder bumps into dumpsters, baking tray shots to the head, and a gorgeous powerbomb from the apron into the dumpster by the Outlaws, before the logical conclusion of the match, which saw Chainsaw Charlie drop the Outlaws into a dumpster with a forklift to win the titles. Cactus and Chainsaw dropped the titles back to the Outlaws the next night on Raw, but that's neither here nor there. Number 2, The Rock vs Mankind in an empty arena match. It's safe to say that Mick Foley is the undisputed MVP of battering people all over the arena. He did it in WCW, ECW, and the WWE, making his name in the process. One of his most memorable was the empty arena match against The Rock for the Great One's WWF Championship in 1999. Occurring during the middle of their famously violent feud over the gold, the empty arena match saw the corporate champ and Mrs. Foley's baby boy batter each other all around an empty Tucson convention center. In terms of match quality, this is definitely not the best, as it was your standard Attitude Era trash brawl. You know the type, two competitors weirdly walking with each other from place to place, clobbering each other with whatever was lying about. There's little psychology and definitely very few actual wrestling moves, with Rocky and Mick pelting each other with food and weapons. The end came when Mankind trapped The Rock under a forklift to get the pin and win his second WWF Championship. Sure, a bit of a crap way to win the biggest prize in wrestling, but it was certainly memorable. Weirdly, this was the second time Foley won a title via forklift, go figure. So why is this match so high on our list? Well, you had two of the biggest stars of wrestling's biggest boom period, it was the first ever empty arena match, and there's the fact that the WWF Championship changed hands. Oh, and don't forget the ratings. Running against the Super Bowl halftime show, the empty arena match was a massive success, garnering a whopping 6.6 Nielsen rating in the States, or about 7 million viewers to you and I. These are numbers that Vince McMahon would probably quite literally kill for today. Number 1, The Final Deletion. The high watermark of wrestling weirdness, The Final Deletion split the wrestling world in two in 2016. You had Jeff Hardy taking on his brother Matt, who had gone off the deep end and was now talking with a fake sophisticated accent and claiming he was an interdimensional being who had been alive for millennia. After weeks of back and forth fighting, Matt's obsession with deleting his younger brother reached boiling point, and the two squared off at Matt's Hardy compound. The final deletion itself was more movie than wrestling match, with over-stylized camera works, editing and music, and saw all manner of ridiculous action. You had Jeff swanton bombing out of a tree, drone attacks led by Vanguard 1, firework launchers handily deflected by Skarsgård the dilapidated boat, even an appearance from Willow thanks to the Lake of Reincarnation. Matt finally won when he set fire to a trail of gunpowder and blew Jeff to smithereens. I'm not even joking. We had never seen anything like this before, and it led to some renewed interest in TNA, which in 2016 was probably the weirdest thing about this match. In any other feud, this would have been a grand blow-off, but being the Broken Hardys, this was merely the launchpad for bigger and weirder things, such as Final Deletion 2, Delete or Decay, and Tag Team Apocalypto. Even the WWE had a go with the Wyatt compound match, but that was a bit crap in comparison.
Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. You can follow us on Twitter at Cultaholic. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do here at Cultaholic, you can pledge to us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Cultaholic. And most importantly, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us.